freedom of speech. Why did the founders think freedom of speech was so important? Do you believe there are times when freedom of expression should be limited? Explain your response. Should a public speaker who calls for violent action be protected by the First Amendment, whereas an audience member who performs the action is sent to prison? Why or why not?
The founders believed in a limited but just freedom. They believed that the citizens of America should be able to speak their beliefs. George Washington once said, "If freedom of speech is taken away, then dumb and silent we may be led, like sheep to a slaughter." Washington believed that if freedom of speech was taken away, the citizens would be scared to speak up and be led down the path of a tyrannical country instead of a country run by the people and for the people.
To represent one's ideas and other people's point of view shows individual development and human dignity. One should be allowed to say what one thinks and hear about others' opinions. It is also easier for one to hear about different discoveries if other people are allowed to speak their ideas and speak about others without any restrictions. Citizens of a country are also allowed to vote and express opinions about the people running for election or hoping to win representation. To make an opinion, one would have to have information via newspaper and/or media. Without the First Amendment, citizens would not be able to make opinions based off of information given by the media because there would be no freedom to print anything that expresses opinion different from the majority. With the media comes peaceful social change. Peaceful social change allows a person or group of persons to try to influence the public to agree with their causes or beliefs.
Freedom of expression cannot be limited if it addresses a public issue. For instance, in Phelps v. Snyder, the Supreme Court ruled that the Westboro Baptist Church were speaking about a public issue and were not targeting Snyder himself. They ruled that the Westboro Baptist Church followed all time, place, and manner restrictions. Also, the church was not revealing any personal information about Snyder's family. All the information they got was from the obituary. Even though most people don't agree with what they were protesting about, they have the freedom of expression and can express their opinions. Freedom of expression, however, can be limited in schools if it disrupts the learning environment. It can also be limited in time, place, and manner. One cannot protest outside a house at the middle of the night. In addition, one needs a permit to protest in certain areas. Freedom of expression can be limited if it endangers public safety. It cannot be limited if people are expressing political views. People are able to say whatever they want about the government so long as they do not physically harm people. Freedom of expression can be restricted if it follows the harm principle, which includes hate speech. These restrictions are made to protect people and make sure no one is harmed. Speech can be limited if the speech is dangerous to public safety, national security, or other important rights. Speech can also be limited if it conflicts with someone else's rights.
Speakers calling for violent action can do so in one of two ways, which should be prosecuted separately. One way involves hate crimes, which are of course prosecuted under the Matthew Shepard and Harry Byrd Jr. Hate Crimes Prevention Act, and thus the prosecution of these crimes committed at the urging of the speaker should target all involved parties, since the speaker was indirectly responsible. However, speech about or encouraging crimes such as treason should absolutely be protected, as it is mostly due to grievances based on the welfare of the people. While speakers have historically been punished for crimes such as anarchism, such as when Emma Goldman was deported under the Immigration Act of 1903, also known as the Anarchist Exclusion Act in anarchist circles, speaking one's opinions about the government is not a threat to public safety nor welfare. Goldman, in addition to comrades such as Alexander Berkman, was speaking in favor of anarcho-communism, which entailed speaking for equality of all peoples. There are some crimes, therefore, that are prosecuted despite never negatively impacting any citizens. This is unconstitutional, even if their opinions are unpopular.
Remember, our questions are open to any of you. So in your opening statement, you talked a little bit, you touched upon the media and the press and the freedom of speech issues that reside there. I'm curious from your perspective, you're all familiar with what's been going on since August in Ferguson, Missouri. And you've all seen the events that have taken place with the press, whether it's CNN, the print press, the video press, whatever it might be. And arguments could be made that the press is trying people in the public before any real trials ever taken place. Should there ever be any restrictions on the press? And if there are, what might those be?
I don't believe that there should be any restrictions on the press, especially in the Ferguson and Staten Island cases. Because in this case, the press are telling us what's going on, because the public needs to remain informed about the political climate of their country. And that is what the media is doing in Ferguson. While there are certain instances where the media may contribute negatively to a situation, they should still be protected, as it is within their rights, freedom of the press, to print whatever they desire.
I agree with my colleague because the press should be allowed to inform the public, and they have the freedom to print whatever they want about an issue because they have the First Amendment rights, because the public needs to know in order to make informed decisions about topics.
Okay, Matt, you know that the internet is open to just about anything. You can just about do anything on the internet. Do you think that there should be any limitations on what should be allowed on the internet?
I believe that any information that tells or influences people to cause destruction to the public should be limited. For example, I don't believe that there should be instructions on how to build a bomb on the internet, because bombs are weapons that can cause destruction to the public, and that would violate the natural rights of people. And putting the information on the open, publicizing that information would only increase the amount of people who can cause destruction to the public. So therefore, things like that should not be publicized on the internet.
I understand what my colleague is saying, and I would also like to add that certain harmful information, such as cyberbullying, can occur on the internet. There have been many high-profile cases of teenagers committing suicide due to cyberbullying. I think that in such dire circumstances, it absolutely should be limited.
I have another thing to add, my colleague. I believe that anything that, like he said, bomb, instructing how to make a bomb should not be published, and anything that influences people to harm other citizens or obstruct their rights.
And I also believe that any publications about anti-democracy or anti-government should also be limited to some circumstance, because that would affect the way that the government works, and that would affect the people.
I disagree with Sky because you should be allowed to express what you want about the government, because the internet is open to everyone around the world, and other people have different views on how governments should be run in other countries and should be able to post that on the internet. And they can say whatever they want about democracy in the U.S. because if they have internet connection and people and their country allows them to have free speech, then they can write just about anything they want on the internet.
I agree with Sam. I think that having a government that is supposedly by the people and for the people should take into account what the people are saying. And the internet is a way that many people communicate their ideas about the government today. And I don't think that the government that its progress is being frustrated by what's on the internet, because let's face it, our government has always been slow to function and slow to respond, and they're not getting any slower just due to the internet.
Okay, thank you.
I have a case that goes to the Tinker case versus Des Moines, and I'm wondering, why doesn't that rule, their right of expression, differ from areas to areas in geography? For example, maybe one rule would apply to an inner city school in the District of Columbia, and maybe a different rule ought to apply because of community standards to a small town in rural Kansas. Why not have different rules depending on the community versus a rule that fits for everybody?
Now, if I'm hearing you right, I believe that you are arguing slightly for states' rights in that localized government. And states' rights is definitely a very, very contentious issue, and it has been since the founding of this nation. So I don't think that it is a very productive way to discuss the government through states' rights these days, when you have historic issues such as slavery and also modern day issues such as same-sex marriage. I think that nationally all people need to be protected the same way, and to limit protections to certain communities undermines that.
Well, very good. They are challenging questions and lots to think about when you get into somebody's individual rights. I thought, the whole conversation on whether you put how to build a bomb on the internet is a protected right or not. Those are tough questions, and we're facing. You're correct. The government is always behind the curve on having to address technology, and things move much faster than legislation does. I think you brought a lot of good information to the table and brought up some good cases to support your positions. Overall, I think it's a good job. I don't have a whole lot of critique for it.
I thought your responses were excellent. You brought us some very good points. You were clear. You knew what you were talking about. I thought you did an excellent job.
Great job. When you get into these tough issues, and you did a nice job, I think, taking what you learned and applying it to a different kind of question that maybe you had been over. Keep in mind, a lot of these cases at the Supreme Court level are 5-4, so pretty close call, and there's a dissent as well as an affirm. You don't see 8-1 or 9-0 much unless it's some kind of obscure tax question. It seems to me. So that's good. So you're applying yourself, and keep at it. Good job.